Start the recording. Okay. All right, so let's continue on. So what we'll do now is I'll show you a number of examples for file writing and reading. So go ahead and share this. Okay, so first let's talk about how to read a file. So let's, you know what, I need to be able to show you the file itself too on alongside this. So let me do it this way. Let's see if it'll let me do what I want to do here on this. Let's share the screen, the whole screen. Okay. All right. So now what you'll see is we are in here, chapter 12 on the lecture examples. Okay. And we're going to open and read from a file called scores.txt. So let's go find that file. So actually, I wonder if I can just open it here. Can I open it here? Ah, perfect. Yes. All right. So let me, I don't want all of these in there. These are all duplicates from a previous thing I've done. So let me add a name here. Something. What's a good last name? Somebody give me a good surname. Anyone? Are there any good surnames? Anyone? Okay. Yeah, good choices. All right. Let's see. So let's make it a good high value. Okay. All right. So we'll have these three scores that we'll be messing with. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is first, okay, we need to import the scanner. Now, we use it like this java.io.file. We can also import the same way that we do the scanner. So we could also just do import java.io.file. Okay, and then if we do it that way, then we can just take this part off in each of these cases. Okay, so just like with the scanner, we can import the class itself, and then we don't have to use the path. We don't have to use the package information in order to create the object. All right. All right. So we'll save that off. So what we do is we create a file object. Then we use that file object to put that to the scanner. And what we're saying is we want our input not to be from the keyboard. We want to take our input from this. This is where we want our input from. Okay. Now, just like with the previous scanner input, well, input has next. What that means is that has next checks the input stream and says, are there more characters to be read? Have I not reached the end of file? Okay, if I've reached the end of the file, this will return false. It doesn't have anything next. If it's still got characters to be read, if there's still more stuff in the file, then this will return true. It has something next. Okay, just like with the scanner when we used it with the system.in with the input from the keyboard. Okay, just like with that, when we use the next method, what it's saying is we want to get the next thing up until the next white space character. So first name is going to be this part up until the space. Okay, so it's going to be John, right? Then next, okay, get the next thing up until a white space character. Then next, get the next thing up until a white space character. Then, okay, now this is different, right? Next int. What we're saying is the next thing we should be expecting is an integer. So we should get the next thing that represents an integer. Okay, and then we can say, okay, print out, then we can use the information that we just read in, print out that information, and then we close the scanner, close the input file, okay, and we're done. So if we compile this, it should work with no problems, okay? And if we run it, oh, we had a file not found exception, but it's right here. What's going on? Oh, it's because the path. I don't have the path right. Scores is right here, right? Normally it should be whatever the local path is, whatever the current. Let me see something. Whoa. Oh, this escape characters. Let's see if this works. This should have read the file. This should have read the file from the local. Yeah, okay. I have to figure out why it didn't want me to do that with the local file. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out during the break. But this does kind of talk about something that I wanted to talk about a little bit later, was about where the file exists, right? We have to give it a path. We have to give it the path to where to find the file. So the way that we had it before, and I'll comment this out. The way that we had it before, what it should have done, what it did last semester when I did this, and so I'm not sure why, last year when I did this, so I'm not sure why it's not working now, is it would say, okay, I want to look in, I wonder if it's the package thing. Let me try commenting that out and see what happens. Ah, that's it. Okay. For some reason, the package thing, the fact that this doesn't exist inside the package. Interesting. Okay, so take the package part out, and what happens is that we say, okay, I want to use a file that's in the same place where my Java class is. So my Java class is in here. I'm going to look inside of here for this scores.txt file, and then I'm going to use that as the file handler. Okay. Now, and what happened was we read in the data, one line by line, in token by token, part by part, and then we just displayed it out. So now, if we wanted to say, okay, just do some type of mathematical operation on score, let's say -4, right? Okay. Then what we'll see is we can manipulate, we can take the data that we get and we can do something with it. So notice that now each of our scores is 4 less than what it shows up in the file. We haven't changed the file though, okay? Make sure that we're clear on that. Nothing changed in the file, we just displayed it differently, okay? We can do all kinds of different things. We could say, we could do last name, comma, first name, something like that, okay? Let's see. So this is an example of how to read information from a file and just display it to the screen. Notice one thing also, I can't do this. I can't do this. Right? I need to use the file object as the input to the scanner. If I use the string, this string becomes the input stream. So let me show you how that is visually. Oh, okay. What we'll do is we will start up a breakpoint here. Do this. Okay, so I'm going to put this input over here. Okay, input stream. Okay. Now if we step in, notice here, like when we start reading the input stream here, notice what's on the input stream. I'm going to make this bigger. Okay, what's on the input stream? It's all that data that's in, it's all that data that was in our file, right? Notice it's all the data that was in our file, character by character. So when we read the next, it moves. When we read the next, it moves. It takes that information, puts it in here, and moves. Read the next. There, John T. Smith. Next int. It takes the next set of characters till we get to that. Boom. Now it's next int. Okay. So now this is a 10. And then we just display it. Okay. First name now becomes whatever the next thing was, this Eric, right? Okay. So then we run it out. It just keeps getting all the way to the end until we don't have anything next and we're done. Okay. But if I come back over here, if I come back over here and I say, and I just try to take this, put it in here, and I say, I want the scanner to scan this because this is a file, so that's what I want. Okay. Now let's see what happens to that input stream, okay? When we create that input stream, okay, does it have next? Yes, but look at what the input stream is. The input stream is this set of characters. So what's going to happen? When I click this next button, what is going to happen? What do you think? Okay, and stops how? Like it just says, okay, it just reads the first name. Does it display it? What does it do? Stops. When you say stops, what do you mean? Okay. I like the way you guys are thinking. So let's see, Mustafa Mert. Let's see. I think you're going to be right on that first part. Yep. Okay. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Because the problem is, this is a special character, this /0. This character means it's the end of file. Like there's nothing left there. Okay, if you've ever done any programming in C, then we would call this the null terminating character. It's the character that means you've reached the end of a string or some other stuff. It's kind of a meaningless, non-printable character. Okay, it's not. Shouldn't say it's meaningless. It's a non-printable character that what is it? In our case here, it means end of file. It means it's no data. Okay. So anyway, so when we go to read the next, there's nothing there to be read. So let's see what happens. Oh, well, you were right, Mustafa Merit, about it stopping. And what did we get? We got no such element exception. Because what happened was we tried to read from a file that didn't have anything else left to be read. It was kind of like we had tried to access an array index out of bounds, or we tried to access a string character beyond the end of the string, or something like that. And so when we tried to access the file where there was nothing left to be accessed, that gave us an error. Okay. All right. So this is a very important exception we want to avoid if we can help it. Okay. So the way that the way that we ended up with this exception was because we used the wrong input stream, right? Because what we expected to be using was this, but instead we specifically used this instead. Okay, so we need to be very careful not to do that. Okay. One thing, there's no requirement that we create a file variable in order to make this happen. Okay, what we could do is we could just take this, put it here, and then this operates the same way. Okay, we can take a file object, put it in as a parameter to the scanner class, create a scanner object based on that without creating this separate file variable, and it's going to run the exact same way. Okay, so those are all ways that we can create a file and use it as input to the scanner. All right, so let's talk about writing data. So that was how we read it. Let's talk about how we write data. And I'm going to comment that out because I don't want that. Okay. So again, just like before, we're going to create a file object. We're going to call it scores.txt. Okay, right? Now, here what we're saying is if the file already exists, we want to not do anything. We don't want to change a file if it already exists. So if we run it, this should give us the file already exists error. Why? Because the scores.txt file already exists. All right, so let's change the name. Let's change it to scores2. We don't want to lose our old scores file. We want to just create a new one. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is we then create a print writer object. And I want to show you what's going to happen as we step through this time. Okay, so I'm going to use this refresh over here to see this. Okay, because I already compiled it. So let's debug. Okay, so now watch what's going to happen when we deal with this. Okay, when we step over this. Okay, debug. We're going to step there. Okay, nothing just yet. I thought I was going to create it there, but I guess not. Oh, I know why. Okay. All right. So now let's check. Okay, if the file exists, it doesn't exist. Okay. So now we're going to create a print writer object so that we can write to that file. Okay. And now if we look here, look, there it is. We've already created this file, right? Because we've opened it for writing, to write to it. Okay, it didn't create it back here because we just opened the file for possibly reading or possibly writing. But here, where we said I want to use this file object to write to it, it said, okay, I'm going to create that file because it doesn't already exist. Okay, this is important. I want you to know this because this becomes pretty easy exam questions, okay? So for us to put this on a final exam, all right? If we open a file for reading, okay, if we open a file for reading and it doesn't exist, we will get an exception. We'll get a runtime error. If we open a file for reading and it exists, we just open it, we get the information, we get the information from it. If we open a file for writing and it doesn't exist, it will create it. So here's an example. We open this file for writing. When we opened it for writing here, when we created the print writer object, it created a file that didn't already exist. Okay. If we open a file for writing and it already exists, it will overwrite it. It will get rid of the existing file. Okay. So I hope that's clear. Open a file for reading. If it exists, we read it, no problem. If it doesn't exist, we get an exception. Open a file for writing. If it exists, it overwrites it. If it doesn't exist, we create it. Okay. So what that means is that if there's information in the file already and we open it for writing, we lose the information. It's gone. We can't get it back. Okay. All right. That's why this is important. All right. So let's take a look at as we step through this, what happens to our file. Okay. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull this over here because I'm going to show you in a text editor over here. This scores.2. This scores 2. Notice there's nothing in there. We've written to it, but there's nothing there. Oh, well, let's write some more stuff. Okay, so here we've written these two things. Where is it? Over here. Open the file. There's nothing there. Well, we've written two things to it. We've written 2 lines. John Smith, Eric Jones, their scores. I've written it. What happened? There's nothing there. Why is there nothing in my file? If we've written to it, why isn't there anything there? What do you guys think? Did I do something wrong? Anyone? Right, remember what I was saying during the first part, right? We didn't close, so this hasn't been executed yet. So when I execute this, close the file. Now the file's closed, so now if I open it up, there's my stuff, there's my information. I can open it up in another program even. If I open up over here and I see it, there's my information. That's what I needed, right? Okay. Right, so make sure you know to close that file. And then when we finish it off, and we are done. Okay, so that's how we write data to a file. And again, just like before, we can import print writer, we can import file, and then that way we don't have to write this java.io.file, java.io.printwriter. Well, I don't suggest that you do this much, but you can. We could do something like this as well. Import java.io.star, star. Okay, and what that will do is that will get all the classes in the java.io package, and so we can use the file class and the print writer class, right, without having to access their package information. So if we build that, that gives us no errors because we've gotten all the packages there. We generally don't do it this way because it gets all the classes that are in that package. And so unless you are going to use the majority of the classes in that package in your program, you should only import them one by one. Okay. But it is something that you can do. You can use the star as part of the import to get all the stuff from the java.io packages. Okay. All right. So far what we've gotten is, what we've done is we've read data from a file, displayed it to a user. We've written data to a file from our program. What if we want to take information from one file, do something with it, and then produce a second file with the information changed? Okay. Now here, okay, comment that out. Now what we're going to do is we are going to replace information. We're going to pass 4 command line arguments to our program, to our main method. One will be the source file. Okay, what file are we getting information from? One will be our target file. What is the file, the name of the file that we're going to write? What is the old string? What is the text we're looking for, and we want to take it and replace it? Okay. And then what is our new string? What is the new information that we want to do? Okay. All right. So here we're going to use our file class to say the first string, the first source file. Okay, that's our source file information. So we need to make sure that it exists. If it doesn't exist, we're going to have a problem. Okay. Then we want to check if the target file exists. Well, we want to only use files that don't exist already. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Now we're going to read the source file. We're going to open up our scanner to read our source file information. We're going to open up our print writer to create our target file, the thing that we're going to write to. Okay. Now, what we can do, a very simple way to do this, is from our input, we read line by line. Then we replace all instances of our first string with our new string. And then we just write our new string that was created from this. Okay. Let's look at an example here. Let's see, where's my text files? Let me see which. Okay, so let's say we had this Star Wars. Okay, Star Wars Episode 4. Right, so this would be, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, this is the opening text crawl from the first Star Wars movie back in 1978, 79, something like that. All right, so what we might want to do is we want to say, okay, well, we want to replace, let's see. We want to replace all times that, let's take all of the IS's and let's say was. Okay, so let's say we're going to replace all is with was. All right, so let's give it our run argument, starwars.txt. Let's call it starwas.txt. Haha. Jokes, right? All right, we're going to replace the is with the was. So is becomes was. Okay. I want to debug this because I want to step through a little bit and show you what happens. Actually, let's say first thing is let's remove this and show you what happens with this. Okay, so the first problem is going to be args.length. How big is args? It's 3, right? Because 3 strings were passed. So we're going to get an error here, or well, not an error, but we're going to say, hey, you know what? You didn't put this in the right format, so we're just going to be done. Okay. All right. So let's give it the 4 arguments that it needs. Okay. So now we've got, let's see, 4. That's good. Okay. So now we're going to create a file based on the first string, starwars.txt. It does exist, right? So this is if source file exists. So this will be true. Not true is false. So we should be fine. Good. Okay. Target file, args of 1. So the target file will be based on starwas.txt. Now notice if we look at some of the information for our source file, target file, right? So we'll have this. Source file has some information including its path, its file name. Target file, same thing. Okay. Now here we're checking to make sure it doesn't exist. If it does exist, we want to end, but because it does not exist, we can keep going. Okay. So now notice that we're going to create a scanner based on that source file, a print writer based on that target file. All right, some more stuff, some input and output. Okay. While it has next, we're going to keep reading. And we're just going to read an entire line. So just the first line. So our first line, a string S1, episode 4. So S2 is going to take our string 1, episode 4, and replace IS with WAS. Replace all instances of IS with WAS. Okay, so what's string 2? Episode 4. Right? And now we're going to take S2 and we're going to print it to our output file, our target file. Okay. And we're done with that part. Now we're going to check again. Does it have more? Does our input have more? Yes, it does. Right, that was just the first line. So what's going to happen is it's just going to go through line by line. A New Hope. Notice that here there are no IS's in there. Right? No IS's, so therefore nothing changed. Let me pull it up here because we're going to see how this goes here. So it's going to be this line, then this line, then this line, then this line. I want to see what happens after the evil galactic empire because that's going to be interesting. Okay, it is a period. Rebel spaceships. From a hidden there first. The evil galactic. So now we have the evil galactic empire. Okay, good. So is there anything changing on this one? The evil galactic empire. Okay, nothing changes on this one. Okay. Now, here's my question. We've reached this line. Okay. Multiple choice. What's going to happen? Is it going to think that it's reached the end of the file because there's nothing on this line? Is it going to think that this line is blank and so it's just going to be no string at all, just going to leap through with no string at all, or an empty string? Or is it going to see this as a blank line and skip it and go straight to during the battle? Well, the next string that shows up when I click next, okay, will the loop end? A, okay, well, multiple choice. A, will the loop end B, will it read an empty string and loop through with nothing in the string, like a 0 character string? Or C, will it read the next string as during the battle? What do you think is going to happen next? So most of you are thinking B, reading the empty string. All right, let's see. Well, the next time I click next will tell us whether or not A was correct. So let's see. Okay, it does have next. Okay, so A was not correct. So anybody who's thinking about typing A right now, sorry. All right. Let's see what the string S1 becomes. It is the empty string. So those of you who said B, yes, so it is the empty string. So what it sees is this line. I can't even highlight it because it's empty, right? But this line right here is seen as a line, even though there's no text in it. So the string S1 is a 0 character string. Okay, it doesn't mean it's null. It doesn't mean it's nothing. It just means that it's a 0 character string. Okay, so we replace all. So what is S2? S2 is also a 0 character string. So we're going to print what? We're going to print a 0 character string. All right, and then the next time we go through, it'll be during the battle. Okay, so we keep going through over and over again until we get to, let's see, what line are we looking for? Freedom to the galaxy. Where are we? Leia races, where is that? Here, okay. Starship, something else. Her people. Freedom to the galaxy. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. So we've done freedom to the galaxy. We've reached the end of the line, and we no longer have next. Okay, so now wait a second. Shouldn't there be an output.close here? Is this gonna did we do all this work and we didn't even create a file and we're not gonna write to a file? What did we forget to close our file? Anyone? What do you think? Did we fail to close our file? Are we going to have done all this work for nothing? What do you think? Right, Mehmet, that was right. We use this try with the resources version of this, right? Which means that this automatically closed our files for us. Okay. Whew. We didn't forget, we just did it a different way. All right, so when we run through this and we look at our star was.txt, what do we get? It was sold for, it was a period of civil war, rebel, spacious, striking, random, so one there first. Man, there's not a lot of changing. I like only changed 2 things. Oh wait, nope, right. Sinister, haha, Sinwuster. Okay, so as we see what we did each time through, for each line, we took it and we changed IS, anytime I found IS to WAS. Okay, so that's how we can replace text. Okay, the nice thing is we can take the new string here, and we can also we can use it as the file name. So let's take a look. Let's see. Let's say I wanted to say args1. I want to give them. I want to use it as part of the file name. Let's say I want to say args of 2. Args of 0 of 3. Okay, so I want to take this and I want to say this, this thing we're changing from to this thing we're changing to, plus the new file name. So what we could do is we could say, okay, let's just say that. Let's do it. So what we're going to say is I want to use this information that the user is giving me as part of the file name. Okay, so now when I run it, Star Wars, okay. Notice no information given to me, right? Nothing displayed to the screen, right? There's no information displayed to the screen here. But what happened over here? Is to was Star Wars. So what happened was I said I want what they said they wanted to change from to what they wanted to change to, and I want to use a file name they've given me as part of it as well. Okay. And if we open this up, we should see the same thing as before, right? And we can change it. We could say, let's see, let's change something that shows up a lot more. Trying to see. Star, let's say star. Let's say the word star, okay? Because you have Death Star, Starship. Yeah, well, let's see what happens if we do the star. Okay. Here we go. Let's say star to sun. Okay. So we're going to change the word star to the word sun. Notice we don't have to recompile it because we're just changing the run arguments. Okay. So we should see a file star to sun, right? See episode 4. Wait a second, this didn't change. Well, this did. Starship changed to sun. Why didn't this one change? What happened there? Did we do something wrong? Right. Eunice, right, good. You picked up on that. This is all capital. This is a capital S, capital T, capital A, capital R. But what we passed to our method was lowercase star. Right? Remember, these letters are not this S is not the same as this S, right? ASCII sees those as two different values. Okay. So that's important to remember. One other thing I want to make sure you understand. When we do these run arguments, the way that the Java executor would do that is if we were running this from the command line, we would just use Java, the name of our class, and then a list of command arguments. When we run this, it automatically takes these 4 values, puts them into a string array, and passes it to that method. Okay, this is really important for your assignment 4 that you guys have been assigned. Okay, that is the way that we can pass an argument to the main method. Okay, one more thing on files that I want to do. I encourage you to look through some of these other ones too. Read file from URL. So yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about this difference between writing data and appending data. Okay, because we can use a new package and a new class called the file output stream that we didn't talk about in the lecture slides to append data. Okay, now it uses this file output stream like a print writer. It uses a file object to say what I want to write to, and it uses this that says whether or not it's going to append or overwrite. Before, when we use this print writer here, when we use print writer to open a file for writing, if the file already existed, it overwrote the file. Okay, so for example here, let's take this out. Let's say I don't care if the file exists. I want to create the new file. Okay, and let's say let's change this from 90 to 100. Okay. Okay. Now notice what the score is 2 is 90 and 85. Okay. Now when we go and we step through this, okay. Now we don't care if the file exists already or not. We're still going to create it. Okay. Now let's go back and take a look at what scores 2 has in it now. It's empty. The reason why it's empty is because we now opened it for writing and we said overwrite what's already there. Okay. So we can't change information in the file, we just get rid of it. Okay, so now when we close the file now and we're done and we open up scores of 2, now the original information is now done away with. But sometimes we don't want to overwrite what's already there. Sometimes what we want to do is we want to add to what's already there. All right. So now instead of creating a file object, we're going to create what's called a file output stream. And with this true here, we're saying we don't want you to overwrite what's there. We just want to add to it. Okay. In the same way, though, if the file doesn't exist already, in fact, what I want to do is I want to delete this. I want to delete that file. Okay, so that file doesn't exist anymore. Make sure it doesn't exist. Okay, good. It doesn't exist. So now, when we do this, okay. Okay. When we do the print writer output, it should. Okay, yeah. It should create the file here, and there it is. Okay. And now, when we step through it, we're going to add to it. We're going to close the file. And now if we open up that file, we should see this information here. Okay, good. So far, so good. Now, if we run this again, what's going to happen is instead of overwriting what was already there, it appends to it. So it adds to it. If we run it again, and again, and again, And there, just keeps adding to it over and over again. Okay, so just like with writing, if the file doesn't exist, it will create it. Unlike with writing, appending adds to the end of the file. It adds to the end of what was already there. It doesn't overwrite what was already there. Okay. All right. So make sure you understand the difference between writing and appending, reading, and all the different what could happen if the file doesn't exist. If the file doesn't exist, if we try to read it, we get an error. If we try to write it, we create it. If the file does exist, if the file does exist and we try to read it, that's fine. We read it. If we try to write it, we overwrite. We get rid of what was already there. If we try to append, we add to the end of it. Okay. There was one other thing I realized I wanted to tell you in relation to this. Oh, yeah. Okay. So about the whole path stuff. So let's say that sometimes we want to have, I have it named temp over here. We want to have a file, we want to have like a file location, right? Like we have our classes here. We don't want to have all our text files cluttering up where our Java class files are, right? We want to have a special location. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that scores file. Okay. Now let's take both of them. Let's take scores2.txt also. And let's move it. Let's move them into our temp directory. So this is where we're going to keep our text files. Okay, so our text files are going to be in the temp directory. Okay, now, and we can refresh this, and you'll see that the scores file is not there. It's now down in here. Okay, good. So now, if we try to run this, we get an error, right? We get an error that the file was not found. The scores.txt file was not found. And the reason why is because there is no scores.txt file in the current directory that we're in. There's no text file in here called scores.txt. What we need to do is we need to tell it where to look to find it. Okay, so we say, okay, go into temp, go into this folder, and look for a scores.txt file. So now let's see if this works. Ah, that's where it is. Good, right? Okay, and we can't do a single slash. If we do a single slash, it's going to try to say escape S, right? If we try to compile this, okay, it compiles just fine because this isn't a compiler error. This is a runtime error, right? Temp cores.txt. No, that's not what we meant to do. We meant to do a double slash. Okay, right? So this is about how to find files in some locations. Okay, now what if, yeah, I won't get into some of the other stuff with like navigating through the dot stuff, but that's some interesting stuff about, if you want to look into it yourself, about how to navigate from one location in one folder to another folder above or below where we currently are. Okay, that's more for your 313 class that'll come up in a couple of years. All right, but if we put our text files down into the temp directory, we can do that like this, and then we can access it using folder / and then file name. Okay, we can do multiple folders if we want to as well. Okay, and this will work whether we're reading from a file or we're writing. So if we wanted to write to the scores.scores2, right? We want to write to this location. Actually, I meant to change the name on this. So let's call it scores1. Okay, so we can see that it creates a new file down here. Because here, scores1, there is no scores 1.text here, but if we go down into temp, there it is. Okay. And so what this means is not only can we use it like in a hard-coded like this where we access a directory at a certain file, we could also send it in as a run argument or get it as input from a user. What file location do you want to look in? What folder do you want to look in? Okay, so all kinds of ways that we can get this string from some location, from a user on their input, from the run arguments. We can get this string and then use it as a way to create or manipulate files. Okay. All right. Somebody asked a question about file writer. Let's see, who was it? I think it was Eunice, maybe. Yeah, can't we use file writer? Yeah, like I said, there's more than one way to write a file. So you know, whatever is your favored way, whatever way you like to use is fine. For an assignment or for an exam, you can use any way that gets the job done. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, then what we'll do is we will take our break now. We will come back at 11:30 and we will do recursion. We'll introduce recursion. We might not finish it today though. Okay. So we'll talk about recursion when we come back, and I'll see you guys in about 15 minutes.